when you realize you're getting annoyed at the child, before you're enraged, when you're just getting annoyed, it's more mild. You stop and you notice and you say, I've got to stop this before I get too angry. Don't wait. Don't be patient and wait. Instead, notice it, decide you're going to take action, and then the first action you take is to calm your own self. So you do what I call stop, drop, and breathe. Just stop whatever you're doing. Maybe you were on your phone, maybe you were talking to another adult, the grandmother, whatever. Stop that, and then drop your agenda. Your agenda at this moment is to go and shout at your child to make them stop. But just drop that agenda for 30 seconds, just for a moment until you calm down. And then breathe. Breathing calms you down, because right now, when you look at your child jumping on the sofa, you say, it's an emergency. And you go into fight, flight, or freeze. That's a state of emergency. Well, what does fight, flight, or freeze mean? You fight the robber or the tiger. Well, you don't really fight the tiger. You fight the robber. You run from the tiger, right? Fight, flight. Flight would be running from the tiger. Or freeze. You realize you can't get away from the tiger, so you pretend you're dead, right? That's freeze. So fight, flight, or freeze is what happens when it's a state of emergency. And so when you look at your child and you go into a state of emergency, you're in fight mode, and your child looks like the enemy, and you're ready to fight with them. But what happens when you take a breath? Your body says, oh, it's not really an emergency. If it were an emergency, she'd be running, she'd be fighting. It's not an emergency, she's breathing. She's taking a deep breath, a calming breath, maybe 3 deep breaths. And the body says, oh, it's not an emergency after all. We can calm down now. Okay, guys, no more adrenaline. Don't give me any more adrenaline. Shut that off. We're going to calm down now. It's all good. Not an emergency after all. She's breathing deep. So you've given your body the signal to calm down. That helps a lot. Now, you're still pretty annoyed that the child is jumping on the couch. But now your body stops escalating. So that's stop, drop, and breathe. So that's the first thing you do. And then you're moving toward your child. You're moving toward your child, but you remember, my child isn't open to my influence unless I connect first. So your second step is to connect. So you say your child's name, not in a mean way, not in a threatening way, but in a nice way, right? So you say, Nitra, to your child, and your child looks up at you, and you say, you are having fun, aren't you? So she looks at you and she goes, yeah, I'm having fun. Look, I'm jumping. And you say, I know, sweetheart, and then you're next to her, and you scoop her up in your arms, and you say, I know you are, and you're putting her down. Jumping on the couch isn't okay. Jumping on the sofa is not okay. At our house, it's okay. Maybe it is okay at your house, but not at grandmother's house. Grandmother doesn't want people jumping on her sofa. And then she says, no, Mom, I need to jump on the sofa. I was having so much fun. And you say, I know, you've got a lot of energy. Maybe we can do something else with all that energy. Would you show your grandmother how you can, I don't know, do jumping jacks? How many can you do? Or how you can jump? Give them something to do that's physical, where they're getting the adult attention. Because maybe one of the reasons she was jumping is that she wanted her mother and her grandmother to stop talking to each other and to talk to her, or to look at her, or to notice her. So you give her some attention, and then you help her work out her physical energy. And then you say, okay, I am going to talk with your grandmother a little more, and we're going to have food soon. But right now, what can you do that is okay to do in grandmother's apartment? We brought a book for you. We brought some paper and some art things for you that are safe to use. We'll find a safe place on a table. Maybe there's a little tray that she keeps her art things on so that they don't get over onto the table. She's not drawing on the table. And you find something to get her to be busy, but near you, so she can see you. Maybe even you're not going to have a private conversation. She can listen to you talk. She's next to you, and you can even say things while you're chatting with grandmother. You can say to your daughter, oh, I see you're using a lot of blue today. And she feels like, wow, I'm being noticed. You're not saying, oh, blue is the best color, always use blue. You're saying, I see you're using blue. If it were red, I see you're using a lot of red today. There's no judgment. There's no evaluation. You're just noticing, right? So now she's getting her needs met, right? So what you notice, there's a combination of all of these three big ideas. The first thing you did was calm yourself down. The second thing you did was connect with her. And the third thing you did was help her with the feelings that were creating the problem behavior. So the feelings were, I'm full of energy, I want to do something, nobody's paying any attention to me, right? So you were able to help her with those feelings, all of them. And now everything's back to a smooth place. Whereas what if you had instead gone and shouted at her? She would have been angry. She would have still felt the same way. No one pays any attention to me, and I have all this energy and I don't know what to do with it. And she would have been angry, and she would have acted angry. And you would have gotten more embarrassed, and then you would have shouted more, right? And then you would have embarrassed yourself more by shouting more. You know, this is a whole different approach where, and parents might say, but she still has to learn not to jump on the sofa. You're right. And you just told her. And she probably already knew it, in fact. She just needed help with the feelings that were driving her to jump on the sofa. First, we should recognize what the word means. The word discipline is from the same root as the word disciple. A disciple is a teacher. A teacher. And so, you know, they're a follower of maybe a guru or a religious leader, but they are a teacher. That's what disciple means, to learn and to teach. So if we're learning and teaching, and the child is learning from us, does punishment help them learn? Many parents might say yes, but actually the research shows it does not. The research shows that when we are punished, we get angry and we get defensive and we don't learn. So let's say that you make something for dinner and you put too much salt in it. I've done that many times. I put too much salt in it. And let's say your husband says to you, this is terrible. This food is just awful. Don't you know anything about how to cook? This is full of salt. How could you do this? I would feel punished. I would feel yelled at, right? I would feel humiliated. I would feel unappreciated. After all, I just made a big dinner. And it would not make me want to be, I might want to be a better cook to show him, but I wouldn't make me more interested in doing a good job cooking. And in fact, it would damage my relationship with my husband. It would make me feel like, well, I don't want to be close to him, right? That's what happens with our children when we punish. When we punish our children, they don't want to be close to us. They might want to show us, but it's not by doing a good job, right? It's by maybe in the case of the child jumping on the sofa, the minute we leave the room, she'll go back and jump on the sofa again just to show us, right? So we want to prove ourselves right. We get defensive, we get angry. And when we're defensive, we can't take in new information, we can't learn, and we're not open to changing or to anyone's influence. Whereas guidance, teaching, when we're teaching a child, again, the sofa, what did we just teach that child? We taught her, no, you don't jump on the sofa when you go visiting, number one. Number two, we taught her when you have all that energy, there are other ways to use that energy. No, you feel like you have a lot of energy, don't you? There are other ways to use that energy. And we taught her she can get attention from the grown-ups in other ways that are more constructive. We taught her that also. And we did it all without punishing her. She didn't feel like a bad person. You know, children will always, as I said, exhibit childish behavior. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they're children. And when we make someone feel like a bad person for the rest of their life, that voice we use with them stays in our head. So if you ever stop and you listen to the voice in your head, sometimes that voice in your head is very mean. And it says things to you like, you're so stupid. How could you do such a thing wrong? You made that terrible mistake. You never do anything right. That's not a good voice to have in your head. And where would such a voice come from? It comes from our childhoods. It comes from the way we were treated in childhood. If we feel like we're bad, we repeat that in our minds. And that is not a way, the research shows that when you talk to yourself that way, you're less happy, you're less confident, right? And you're less able to give love to other people because you're less loving to yourself, you're less loving to anyone else, and you're less able to receive love. You may feel unloved, but you're not giving yourself love, so your heart is closed off and defended. You can't receive love, so you don't have as good relationships. So we don't want to do that to our children, right? That punishment creates a mind. Punishment creates a way of thinking that is ultimately damaging to our children and makes them less happy and less having good relationships for the rest of their lives, less confident, less successful. So what happens to your child when you yell? It's scary. When you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old and you yell at them, you shout at them, it's scary. Because think about it from their point of view. You're the center of their universe. You're the person who feeds them. You're the person who shelters them, gives them a place to live, and you're the person who protects them if someone ever tried to hurt them. You're their source of safety and love. And then all of a sudden, imagine your source of safety and love. Maybe it would be your partner, your husband or wife. Maybe it would be if you have a parent you're close to, might be somebody who's a source of safety and love for you. Now imagine that person all of a sudden starts yelling at you, but they're not just who they are. Imagine that they're much, much taller than you. They're 3 or 4 times your height, right? And they could just pick you up and hurt you if they wanted. They're not necessarily going to, but imagine they could. And they're yelling and shouting at you. How would you feel? You would feel scared. And your body would go into a state of emergency. It would be fight, flight, or freeze. And you would either run away and hide under the bed, right? Or you would get angry and try to fight back. If you could, if you were a strong-willed child, you might do that. Or you might, some parents will say to me, my child didn't even look guilty. Their face just went blank when I yelled at them. That's fear. That's actually, when I say fight, flight, or freeze, that's freeze. When you just freeze because somebody is scaring you, right? And you're scared of this parent who is yelling at you. If the parent says anything to you at that moment, like, you stupid child, or don't you know better than this, or you're always making mistakes, the child will take that in at a very deep level, and they will remember that for the rest of their lives. Even unconsciously, it will shape how they feel about themselves. So it hurts their self-esteem. But even if the parent doesn't use hurtful language, even if they just scream, oh, I can't believe it, this is so terrible, how could you have done this, right? Even that, the child takes it in as they're the cause of their parents' upset. There must be something very wrong with them, that they can't even have their parent love them, that they once again messed up. Is the child learning from this? Don't do that wrong thing, whatever it was, like leave their toys around. Maybe the child left their toys around and the parent stepped on the toy and it really hurt the parent's foot. And the parent screams. Totally understandable. I think it's probably happened to every parent at least once. We scream, ouch! That's fine. That's fine. And then you stop, drop, and breathe. You calm yourself down. And then you pick up the toy and you turn to your child and you say, this does not belong where people are walking. That really hurt my foot. Where does this go? And the child says, on the shelf. And you say, okay, can you put it on the shelf? And the child puts it on the shelf. That child learned something. But if you just instead scream at the child, why did you leave this toy here? You know better than that. You throw the child. Let's say you throw the toy. You're so angry, you throw the toy. The toy breaks or it doesn't break. Doesn't matter. What if you just role modeled for your child? You've role modeled that the way you solve problems is by throwing a tantrum. You have a tantrum. You scream, something happens, you don't like it, you scream, you throw the thing, you yell at the person involved. So your child has just learned something very important. It was not what you were trying to teach, but absolutely it is what they learn. The way to solve problems, the way grown-ups solve problems, is to scream and yell and throw things and have a tantrum. And I don't think that's what we want to be teaching them. And I don't think it's what we want to be living with.